Welcome back gamers, and let's discuss the latest in the game series. And today we have Lasara Summer Kingdom. Who would have thought that building a village on the top of a mountain would be so satisfying? It makes sense considering it's quite an ambitious task. Lasara Summer Kingdom put the player through a series of tasks, from providing food for its inhabitants, satisfying their desires such as access to specialized resources, bus, to spreading faith, building a monasteries with monks, all to construct the highest temple on the mountain peak, and ultimately achieve enlightenment. And let's not forget about Avalanches. After all, we're on top of Himalayan mountain. In the game we have three castes of inhabitants: lowlanders, who handle simple tasks, artisans producing advanced resources, and monks dealing with prayers and learning. It is though learning that we discover additional buildings, resources, and techniques. Oh, and remember, without bridges, this village would collapse into ruins. The complex constructions of the Himalayan terrains mean that we can only build our village on parts of the slope. We have to connect these parts with the bridges or lifts if they're too high to climb. Additionally, the slopes are divided into three sections in terms of height. Height affects some resources. For example, grain production is better in lower areas, and monks are more enlightened and the mountain peak. Those divisions require more precise planning of our village construction. Like in the classic city builder, we need to acquire various resources to produce others. But how these resources are transported differs from most games. In Lasara, we have to manually set roads for goods between buildings. When I first learned about this, I thought it would be a pain in the ass, but it turned out to be quite simple, and moreover, Lasara provides us with a few tools to better control the distribution of resources. After a few hours in the game, I definitely appreciate the freedom to decide where my resources go and who has priority over them. It allows for cutting a few corners. Another new mechanics is those cursed avalanches. Avalanches cause significant financial damage, and we have to provide relief to buried households, which I think doesn't work. The game gives us a few options to stop avalanches, such as trees that reduce their intensity. However, for me, this played less like a city builder and more like a pretty picture puzzle game. Everything is strictly proximate based, and while there is some leeway in extending the ranged buildings, you're always stuck with essentially a limited set of pieces which fit together neatly in a limited number of ways and must be arrayed in some specific arrangement in order to work. In this sense, your city quickly begins to feel quite cookie cutter. You place this configuration this level, and that configuration at that level, then connect them, and it works with a little fuzz. While there are variations on this theme, the theme is persistent and pretty quickly began to feel too stifling for my tastes. In more open-ended city builders, cities can take in dramatically different shapes and design depending on player goals and the maps being played. There's a lot of creative agency that goes into each city in these games in terms of where you place districts and how you connect them into functionally integrated city. Whereas here it feels rather linear and almost entirely predetermined by the map. This is further limited by the strict proximity based on functionality of buildings, which leads to a relatively limited number of configurations for different districts. While is it a beautiful game to look at with high attractive settings, the gameplay just didn't keep me engaged enough to want to continue playing in its current state. I respect the efforts put into this game by developers and don't want to disparage their work at all. Full credit to them for making such a beautiful and promising game, but for this city builder lover, turns out its fundamental concept just isn't for me. I may come back to this at a later time if it looks like it's been added or changed significantly, but for now I decided to refund as my window for that was quickly closing as my disappointment was rising. I don't know if had I played much longer whether I would have discovered something which really subverts this immersion. But having gotten though the tutorial map and established a successful town on the first open map, I had to make a decision based on the experience I had in just under 2 hours, and this is it. The division into castes and how we unlock new buildings give the game a nice pace and progression. After a while we notice that the new buildings can use semi-finished products that we already produce, and we can streamline our new production naturally. After 5 hours with the game, I'm pleasantly surprised. The game is beautiful with a great art style, beautiful models and gleaming